Okay, good afternoon from here. Good evening to some of us, and of course, good morning also to some of us whose time zone falls within morning hours. I'm Chika Austin, and thank you. uh, like we promised, we are here once again uh, to discuss issue we promised to do earlier before now, and let's see what we can do as much as we can, because we are dealing on issue that requires extensive you know connections with other issues, very important. So that is all we are doing, and like I usually seek from us, I would want to know if we are being reached out loud and clear, and if that is done, then we have no other cause than to proceed, because uh, we really have too many things to talk about in respect to the topic of the day. We are going to look at of course, it's a developmental issues, so we are going to have too many things discussed, very important, and that is what we are going to give justice to this moment, because thank you, Ebu Nauju, thank you so much. So we'll then move on, because um, it was we move on. We'll move on to look at the developmental issues, because it's of course a developmental issue, and we have to, gather every resources available to make clarity, or to buttress what we are making people to know, what we are making our people to know, what we are pointing to everyone to see, especially those who care to see. So we are talking about current Obasanjo's alarm. Obasanjo have been known, yeah, some people will say he's an alarmist. Yes, that is what some people will say. Then some people will give a different name. Thank you, Mazi Parker Charles. Thank you so much for being with us this moment from Israel. Thank you. So we are talking about the current Obasanjo's alarm. He has raised the alarm, and I think the presidency or the federal government have not responded yet over Obasanjo's latest alarm he raised. But while we are yet to get the response of the federal government, we are going to do justice. We are going to dissect it. We are going to analyze it. We are going to unearth those things Obasanjo said, and those he could not say, but he meant to say anyway. So these are things we are going to look at this very moment. Look at those things he verbally said, and those things he could not say, but he could not use a verbal expression on. But of course, he is saying it. But before that, most of us know Obasanjo. Quite sure we know Obasanjo. Everybody talks about Obasanjo, especially during his presidency as a civilian president. Everybody talks. We know Obasanjo, the humorous Obasanjo, the funny Obasanjo. Some persons know him in different quarters, with different definition. But I want to give a rundown, a rundown of Obasanjo's personality, not because, not because we don't know Obasanjo, but I want to give a brief rundown of Obasanjo's personality, because of what we are about to discuss so that you understand the character we are talking about. You understand the man we are talking about. We are not, we are not talking about the Obasanjo of, the humorous Obasanjo that uses, a kind of comic relief. We are talking about a serious Obasanjo who is raising a serious issue here. We are not talking about a funny Obasanjo like some persons would want us to present here. No, we are talking about an Obasanjo that is widely connected, who have dealt with a lot of powers that be, international powers that be. So we are not talking about the farmer in Otta Farm in Ogun State. That is not the man we are talking about. We are talking about an Africa player who is known by a lot of global actors, state actors and non-state actors. So that is what we are talking about. But let me flip up something for us. The little personalities of Obasanjo, very, very important while we move ahead. So let's look at some of the personalities Obasanjo we are talking about possesses. And this is the personality, Obasanjo personality, the Obasanjo we are talking about. One is that he's a one Nigeria apologist, then a two-time president of Nigeria, talking about being a military president, and a northern Nigerian loyalist. He's he's loyal to those in the northern part of Nigeria. So he is a one Nigeria apologist. He's a pro one Nigerian. He was a Nigerian president, talking about during the military dispensation, and of course in democratic dispensation. And of course he is, of course by extension, he is one of the certain politicians or certain leaders that have shown loyal, or that have seemed to be loyal to the northern hegemons, So this is the man we're talking about. Remember, the man we want to discuss is he is a pro-Nigerian. He wants Nigeria to remain together. He wants Nigeria to survive the storms. This is a man who fought the Civil War. He was part of the Biafra Nigeria Civil War, and he equally governed Nigeria after the Civil War. And later he became a 2 times president, of Nigerian presidency, or seat of power. So he is really rooted in Nigerians' affair, so that you understand the man we are talking about here. So Nigeria, he has taken enough from Nigeria that he would not want Nigeria to end. Get that, understand? Nigeria has invested in him. Nigeria has offered a lot to him. That Obasanjo that is speaking out today naturally would not want Nigeria to disintegrate, to end, if such decision should be at his disposal. Make no mistake about that. And another thing we have to profile in the person of Obasanjo, let's look at Obasanjo, because why are we trying to, first of all, bring up his personality, whom he is, to the limelight? We want to do this so that you will understand. We are profiling him so that you will understand the seriousness of his alarm. You will understand the seriousness of whatever Obasanjo says. You will understand that Obasanjo is deeply rooted, deeply connected, and as such is privy into a lot of sensitive information, even classified informations within the African geopolitics and beyond. Very, very important you understand that. So, apart from being a pro-Nigeria or a one Nigerian apologist, or being a once military president of Nigeria and later civilian president of Nigeria, we are meant to understand that he equally has been a good boy to the northern hegemon, no doubt about it. Let's now see the international connection of Obasanjo, looking at Obasanjo foreign policy, and that will help us to understand how deep Obasanjo is to the African politics, to the global politics, so that whenever he said something, we can now use his degree of connection as a yardstick to understand how weighty his warnings could be, how serious his alarms could be. Very, very important. Take for instance, why we are trying to make this profiling before going into deep discussion of today is because it's normal when let me give a clear instance where we can now understand what we are talking about here. I will use one country to give a clear instance. Take for instance, or let me use the local setting. If a man whose international connection is within African geopolitics, I'm talking about, let's assume a man travels wide, he travels a lot within African continent, he does business within African continent, he does a lot of politicking within the geopolitical area, talking about Africa, and another man does business in Europe. All his travels have been towards Europe, friends, he makes a lot of European friends. You will believe me that if the man whose business is pro-Africa or Afrocentric, if such a man enters into governance, he will be privy with a lot of things happening within African politics. That is how it is. And the other man who have been Eurocentric, or who have been traveling, all his business have been towards Europe, all he will know more is about Europe. Same applies to governance. Presidents who have run foreign policies that are pro-East tend to know more about what the Eastern Bloc, so to say, have in mind concerning their government, and same applies to one who runs pro-Western foreign policy. So we are going to look at Obasanjo's foreign policies, and from there we can deduce how connected he is. And looking at how connected he is, that will be a very good pointer to you, to I, or a very good determinant factor to decide if his alarms should be taken serious or not. Very, very important. So let's look at some of foreign policy or some of the behaviors of Obasanjo, especially during his tenures. Very, very important, because it's going to help extensively to analyze what we are doing this moment. You will agree with me that Obasanjo's regime was pro-West. Obasanjo did everything possible to satisfy the Western countries. So if Obasanjo, take for instance, let me give some instances. You will remember the story of Chastello, how America and Obasanjo had an understanding, and Obasanjo handed over Chastello to ICC, International Criminal Court. And you should equally remember how the Western countries use Obasanjo extensively, including European Union. European Union used Obasanjo. Obasanjo was a brainchild of African economic integration through the formation of NEPAD, New Partnership and Development. I think so. Yes, from Obasanjo and that of Thabo Mbeki, of former South African president, were extensively used as an instrument of African economic integration. And that was under the heavy sponsorship of European Union. And Obasanjo delivered. So that will tell you how Obasanjo have been a very good friend of Western blocs, Western countries. When I talk about Western countries, of course, you should understand I'm talking about European nations. I'm talking about America. I'm talking about Israel. I'm talking about Australia. I'm talking about New Zealand. I'm talking about these countries, so that you will not fail to understand what I'm saying. So apart from that, remember, same Obasanjo was used to initiate the new political integration in African geopolitics, which led to the formation of or movement from the defunct OAU, Organization of African Union, or Unity, so to say, to African Union. It was Obasanjo that spearheaded for transformation of political integration in Africa through the decommissioning of OAU and the formation or commissioning of AU. So Obasanjo extensively happens to be rooted in Western relationship. And if he's rooted in Western relationship, you should understand that whatever he's saying, unarguably, will be the mind of Western bloc. And apart from that, you should also agree with me that it was during Obasanjo time that Nigeria had what we call series of debt cancellations from Paris Club and other financial institutions or lending institutions, international lending institutions, took time to do a lot of debt cancellation. And all this, if you investigate, you find out that all these countries that granted Nigeria debt, or all these institutions that granted Nigeria debt cancellations during Obasanjo's era, were all Western institutions. And Obasanjo wouldn't have had his way if not that he is a friend of the West. Just like the current regime in Nigeria that happens to be an anti-West nation, rather a pro-East, because current regime is talking about China, everything China. She doesn't want to hear you, the Western nation. She doesn't want to have anything to do with Western nation. And you can see everything, because everything she talks is China, and she's, attracting a lot of battles on the Western front. So Obasanjo was a pro-Western president, no doubt about it. He did everything possible to appease the Western powers. So this is a man, during his presidency, even prior to his presidency, because it was even the Western nations that placed a heavy sanction on Abacha that led to the release of Obasanjo from prison. So before his presidency as a civilian regime, the West have been using him. They have been working with him. Like some other persons will argue that he has been a teaspoon in the hand of Western government. He has been a very good boy to the Western powers. During his presidency, he was equally a good boy to the Western power. That's why he could attract a lot of debt cancellations and a lot of bilateral agreements with Western nations. No doubt about that. So if such a person is coming up to today and start telling you, which we are going to look critically, closely, his statements. If such a man is coming today to tell you, to raise alarm, you and I will be so foolish to think that the man is speaking from personal opinion. Obasanjo is not speaking from personal point of view. Obasanjo is speaking from what the world leaders have briefed him of. He's speaking of what the global intelligence agencies have updated him of. Obasanjo is speaking according to what international diplomats have briefed him of. Obasanjo is speaking of what world leaders, especially from Western Front, have intimated him of. He is not speaking from the information he gathered at Otter Farm. We will do ourselves a great disservice if we see it from that point of view. Because from the above or earlier analysis we made, we have arrived on the fact or on the premise that he has been highly connected within the Western fora or Western international politics. So you don't underrate such man. When such man speaks, he is not speaking from the information circle within the Otter Farm or Ogun State. He is speaking from his wide connection, because till tomorrow he has been a source of Western penetration to African geopolitics. Go and make your research. Till tomorrow, though he's not a president, but he has been extensively used by Western nations to penetrate a lot of African countries, to penetrate AU as a regional bloc or regional organization. So such a person should not by any means underrated or his words downplayed. If anyone does that, that person is doing such thing at his own peril. So let's look at some of the things Obasanjo said recently. I tried to, it were extensive, you know. There are too many things he said, but I tried to make a kind of extractions from, you know, some areas that really interest us to discuss as a people. So we are not going to just barge into extensive academic write-ups or presentations or submissions Obasanjo gave. We are just going to make a kind of surgical pickups, you know, pick up in some areas that interest us most, then we look at them. So let's see one of them. Very, very important. We'll read ahead so that we can understand what we are talking about here. Very, very important, you know, because now this is one of his statements. He said here, you know, we should not allow the restructuring. We should not allow the restructuring agitation to degenerate to self-determination. Thanks to Buhari's administration and its impunity and all, with the fractional political division, poor management of the economy, the non-protecting security, and the politics of uncertainty in the land. Just take note of the areas I highlighted with red and I put on capital letters. We should not allow the restructuring agitation to degenerate to self-determination agitations. So you know, I highlighted some places we read, and those areas I highlighted and put on capital letters are striking areas. You know, these are areas I want us to extensively. These are areas I extensively we are going to extensively talk about. Very, very important. areas we highlighted with red. So let's go back to that again. Just take your focus on area I put on capital letter and I highlighted with red, because that is area our analysis is going to be critically focused on. Very, very important. So let's read once again, then we come back and look into what that should mean, because we are going to discuss what Obasanjo said to our hearing and what he could not say. You know, when a man talk, you could deduce what you could hear what he's saying, and you could as well pick out what he was saying, but not audible. Something he's saying in his heart. So let's look at that statement once again. Obasanjo said something. He said, we should not allow the restructuring agitation to degenerate to self-determination agitation. You know, now, first of all, let's ask ourselves a question. Obasanjo, like we said, is a one Nigeria lover, no doubt about it. And Obasanjo is saying we should not allow the restructuring agitation to degenerate to self-determination agitation. First of all, one thing we have to acknowledge here is that Obasanjo have acknowledged this fact that there are two agitations ongoing. One is the restructuring argument. This is where the lives of Ohaneze and even some of the governors of the South are anchoring, deceptively anchoring themselves. That is those on the restructuring school of thought. And there's another group which Obasanjo have recognized. He said self-determination agitators. This is where, of course, unarguably, IPOB stands. But what do you see here? There is a change of diction. There is a change of diction. What is that change of diction? I'm talking about change of language. In diplomacy, in international politics, language is as important as whatever you can imagine. What do I mean by language? The choice of language one uses is as important, is as critical as the action that is going to spearhead or proceed after that language. That's why countries are very, in international politics, in diplomacy, before a press statement is given, there is series of evaluation of diction, the choice of language that ought to be used. There is a critical overhauling, re-examinations of those languages, those words that needs to be imported. Very, very important. And in this case, Obasanjo did not say, let us not allow self-determination, let us not allow restructuring agitation to move into cessation. That is not the language Obasanjo used. He did not say or miscreants pursuit. He never said that. Rather, Obasanjo said, we should not allow the restructuring agitation to degenerate to self-determination agitation. What is Obasanjo admitting here? Obasanjo is admitting, just the way he has had the world and his international friends. I told you he have a very deep connection with Western players. So Obasanjo is now getting his view over self-determination agitation. He's no longer seeing it as a cessation. He's no longer seeing it as abnormal pursuit. He's no longer seeing it as a pursuit for violence. He's not seeing it that what IPOB is doing today is a self-determination. And what is self-determination? Is a right to choose the kind of life, the kind of government of your choice. So why would Obasanjo move from lashing those of us who are seeking for freedom? Why would Obasanjo move from calling it secession, calling it violent agitation, to self-determination? Obasanjo find himself using that word because from his extensive contacts and extensive traveling, he had been hearing from the world leaders, world stakeholders, international state actors and non-state actors, that what Biafrans are doing in Nigeria is self-determination and it is their right. Do you understand that? There is a submission by Obasanjo by using the word self-determination. There is acknowledgement. There is a nodding from Obasanjo that self-determination is a right of a people. This Obasanjo who could not use such word before. This Obasanjo who could not mention the word self-determination. But for him to use his word and say restructuring agitation and self-determination is because from his extensive traveling, he has come to the realization, based on what international players have been telling him, that what we are pursuing is a self-determination, and self-determination is not evil. You can now understand how things are developing. You can now appreciate how your resoluteness, my own resoluteness, can change those who claim they own this world to start thinking aright. Nothing changed Obasanjo to... Remember, it was Sam Obasanjo who said we are miscreants. But today he now recognizes that there is something called self-determination. Why this sudden change? Obasanjo made this sudden change because after his extensive consultations to work down on IPOB, to suppress IPOB, the world kept telling him that what Biafrans are pursuing is self-determination. Unlike during the Biafran-Nigeria war, when they came and said, we are rebels. Today, they cannot market. It's so difficult for them to market that blackmailing tax. So difficult for them to convince the world that we are violent, that we are pursuing for secession, we are, miscreants. So difficult. And haven't tried and failed. There is now a revise. Obasanjo is now choosing the revised gear to, make the submission that self-determination is a right of the people. And why is now advising Nigerians, regrettably, and of course when it's already late, is that they should restructure, because his international friends have told them that they are in support of Biafran's self-determination. In one of them, he further said that, in fact, of course, it is a secret he gave to Nigeria government, which I think Nigeria government knows about. He further stated that those who are seeking for self-determination will soon get international support. You see, this is a man who dies with Western nations, because he has proven to be a Western instrument. Very, very important. He has proven in all definition to be a Western instrument in African geopolitics. So he is now telling them, look, we have tried extensively to convince the world that these guys have nothing good they are pursuing. But the world is telling us that self-determination is a right. And that's what Obasanjo is indirectly telling Nigerians, please prepare. The future of this country is not guaranteed. So let's read ahead. Very, very important. Very, very important. Let's see another thing he said. Very, very important. And now this is another thing he said in the so-called purported press statement. He said, there is still a window of opportunity for us to nip in the bud a possible, take note of the areas of red lines, a possible and indeed likely agitation for self-determination that will be violent, destructive, and all empowering. So serious. I hope you're reading. This is what Obasanjo is saying. I hope you read along with me. And it's really shocking. He said, there is a window of opportunity for us to nip in a bud. These advices given to to his northern masters. Just carefully. I wish we read again so that I come back for detailed explanations. Very, very important, because I must say that this is shocking to me that such a word is coming to Obasanjo, a man who believes we are kidding some years ago. He used his mouth to say we are miscreants, we have nothing good pursuing. But this advice is given to the Northern and the Fulani. Look, just read. He said, there is still a window of opportunity for us to nip in a bud. One, a possible, it's possible, good, and indeed likely agitation for self-determination that will be violent, destructive, and all empowering. You could see it's coming out from a man who is internationally connected, who is not speaking from a local perspective. This is a man who have traveled wide, and it is the same man who called us miscreants. He said, there is still a window of opportunity for us to nip in bud. What is the window of opportunity Obasanjo is talking about here? Obasanjo is talking about the window of opportunity which has to do with restructuring, because he believes that if the center is weakened and we fall back to regionalism, that IPOB might subpedal, that IPOB might consider. Look at. Let me tell you one wonderful game he thinks should be played, but that game is dangerous. Just carefully follow me. Why is that game dangerous? The game is dangerous because if IPOB is not on the gallery, it could have been a sweet game for them to play. But the game is dangerous because IPOB is on the gallery. So if you play the card, it will be so disadvantageous to them. And what is that game? Let's just analyze. Obasanjo is saying here there is a window of opportunity to nip in the bud the self-determination pursuit. Now, what is the window of opportunity Obasanjo is talking about here? Obasanjo is talking about restructuring. And let's ask ourselves this question. Can Nigeria government ever agree to restructure? Can the Fulanis agree to restructure? The answer is no. Why? The answer is because IPOB is at the center of the gallery. What is restructuring? If you weaken the center and move down to regionalism, like some of you staying abroad, you see those individual countries, individual provinces, areas having their own government, having their own things, and having a 1 week central government, especially for defense. Now, let me not tell you why the Fulanis are sitting in a very dangerous position and why they are regretting the current developments. Obasanjo is suggesting it's better with restructure because my international friends are telling me that they are seeing what IPOB is doing as a self-determination, not trouble. And it's dangerous for Nigeria's survival. And Obasanjo is telling them restructure. But the Fulanis, their fear is this. If you restructure and IPOB turns into a political party and gets being in charge and decide to turn into a political party and be in charge of the eastern region, that they can even decide to declare their independence anytime. That is the Fulanese man way of thinking. That is his fear. That how can they restructure in a society where the eastern part of Nigeria will not be under full control of their boys? Because you know what that means? If you restructure, the eastern part will have a quasi-government or de facto government controlling her own affairs. And these Fulanis are afraid that even currently, the governors they have made, they have imposed, they have placed on the people, even now, they are just floating governors. Floating in the sense that they are just, they are recognized by a few psychophants and the hypocrites. That the ordinary man on the street of Biafra land wants to hear what IPOB is saying and not what even these Fulani proteges are talking about. So the issue of restructuring can never see the daylight because it is even dangerous to the Fulanis because of the centrality of IPOB, the place of IPOB in the entire gallery. And Obasanjo is telling them, we have to do it, at least to save the country of what is to come. But will it be possible? Absolutely no. It can never be possible. Now, another thing says there is still a window of opportunity for us to nip in the bud. One, a possible listing. Look at his word, very, very careful. You know, Obasanjo is a very, very intelligent man. He said, one, a possible and indeed. I think, let's read ahead so that you understand what I'm saying. This is Obasanjo's statement. He said, there is a need, still a window of opportunity for us to nip in the bud, a possible, take note of that, a possible and indeed likely agitation for self-determination. A possible, look at what he's saying. He said, a possible. You know, when we say something is possible, there's nothing you can do about it. And like I said earlier, this is a man who travels. In fact, he stays abroad than the way he stays here. He stays abroad meeting world leaders than the way he stays in Nigeria. So you can't underplay him. He has been a very serious contact to Western countries. I mean, Obasanjo is a very strong contact to Western countries. So don't underrate him, because he have information of how the Western nation, when Obama government wants to deal with Goodluck, when it was concluded in Oval Office in number 12 Downing Street to remove Goodluck Jonathan, Obasanjo was briefed. His contacts within CIA, within M15 and M16, within FBI, within Mossad, they briefed him and told him that this man is going nowhere. The Western bloc of the time have concluded not to allow Jonathan to come back as a president. Obasanjo was briefed, and he came before camera and tore his membership card. Remember that drama? And the same Obasanjo is telling you today that you are joking, that this country you're seeing in a short a while is going to be scattered into pieces. And if you doubt him, it is at your own peril. If you doubt him, it's at your own detriment. So he said a possible and indeed likely agitation for self-determination. One thing I want us to appreciate here is his choice of language. He is, thank you, Master Chijoke, he is acknowledging that what we are doing is a self-determination. Why is he acknowledging it? Is the acknowledgement originating from him? The answer is no. He's acknowledging based on the fact that those he have met internationally to paint IPOB black, to help him downplay what IPOB is doing, to help him recycle the activities of IPOB, told him point blank that the agitation for Biafra is gathering international sympathy. And he is communicating to his people to know what is to come. Another thing he says, that will be violent. Remember, he said the self-determination one will be violent, will be destructive and all-empowering. Will be violent, will be destructive, and will be all-empowering. You can't understand what he said. He said he will be destructive. He said it will be violent. Let's just make analysis on these three words he used. Say it will be violent. He said it will be destructive and all-empowering. You know, like I said earlier, I said this is not a man, he's not a local man. He's a man who is internationally connected. And I believe nobody will dispute the very fact that Obasanjo, is really, really, really a figure within the African geopolitics. Yes, he's really a figure. Especially he's really a tool in the Western hands. And he's telling you that what is to come will be violent, that it will be destructive, and it will be all-empowering. You know what that means? When you have the knowledge of military terms, intelligence terms, you will appreciate what this guy is saying. Now, let's see another thing he said. I think, let's see another thing he said. Now, another thing he said here is, he said, if not hearted, of course, through restructuring, it will degenerate and poison the atmosphere to the tipping point or point of no return. If the issue becomes conceptualized as an issue of freedom or liberation, there will be no war gate to effectively prevail against it. Now, look at the areas I highlighted with red colors, very, very important. It's talking, it says, if not hearted, tipping point or point of no return, conceptualized as an issue of freedom or liberation. Now, I will explain to details on this, very, very important. I will explain. Now, Obasanjo is saying that if he's not hearted, what is ongoing? If he's not hearted, what I don't know is how best they could heart it, because the opportunity they had to discuss with the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra when he was here, Mazen Nnamdi Kanu, was misused. They were ill-advised, and I think, regrettably, the Python dance is the worst policy implementation they have. I think Abuja is regretting today because they felt if the guy, I'm talking about Mazen Nnamdi Kanu, that if he was around by now, they would have been reaching out to him and discussing. So I wonder, is the Python dance was really a disaster indeed. And Obasanjo is saying, if not hearted, it will degenerate and poison the atmosphere to the tipping point. Now he said a point of no return. You know what a point of no return is? That what he is seeing about this Obasanjo speaking is not Chika Austin. I'm just making analysis of Obasanjo's submission so that you will understand the difference between the speaker and the analyzer. Oh, sorry, the analyst. He said it's going to get to a point, a tipping point, or a point of no return. Do you know what a point of no return implies here? Obasanjo is saying that what he's seeing, I think he sounds to be a prophet here. He's trying to sound prophetic because he's trying to make a prediction or some predictions. He said what he is seeing is that we are getting to a point of no return, a point that you will not see anybody to negotiate with. That the whole development is getting to a point you will not see anybody to negotiate, because nobody will be interested, absolutely not interested, to discuss anything that bears Nigeria with you. And another thing he said, if the issue becomes conceptualized, this is where I'm interested in the whole thing, because Obasanjo sounded academical here. He said, if the issue becomes conceptualized as issue of freedom or liberation, now he sounded more academical here. He said, if the issue becomes conceptualized, that the way things are going, that is going to a point that people will see the fight for self-determination, and of course it's developing towards that point, as issue of they are fighting for freedom and liberation. Now let me tell you something about this. Obasanjo listens to Radio Biafra. By what he said, that from his statement here, I am well convinced that he listens to Radio Biafra, because he said something here. He said, if the issue becomes conceptualized, conceptualization by who? Who conceptualizes the concept of self-determination as currently ongoing in Nigeria? There's no other voice and there's no other channel than the voice of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu and Radio Biafra. You can now understand what they're saying. But he's telling them, because anyway, education in this part of the world is a farce, and of course fraud. But Obasanjo is telling them that somebody is trying to conceptualize through his lectures. Somebody is trying to conceptualize this concept of self-determination through his radio speech, by making the people to understand that this is the issue of survival, this is the issue of liberation, this is the issue of either you do it or you cannot exist as a person. And in his own wisdom, he's telling his people, remember Obasanjo is a very wise man. In his own wisdom, he's equally speaking to his Oduduwan people to see that it looks the Biafran people are beginning to be conceptualized on the issue of freedom through the Radio Biafra. And, you know, this whole thing comes as a result of what he has traveled extensively, and he meets a lot of Biafrans abroad. Let me now say something to you. You must appreciate here. We have two sets of Biafran people. There's this Biafran people, a set of Biafran people who are widely traveled, who are deeply educated. Please follow me carefully. Who are deeply educated, and they have friends across the nation. They have Hausa friends, they have Yoruba friends. And this group of Biafrans, they are business moguls, you know, they are widely educated, they have traveled wide. Most times, they want to sound politically correct. How do I mean by that? You know, most times they want to sound politically correct. These widely traveled Biafrans, wealthy and all this. I will shock you. Let me say something so that you will understand. Now, these Biafrans always want to sound politically correct. When you want to talk about Nigeria, they say, no, leave Nigeria the way it is good. Let's just be moving, things will be better and all this. And they have been a source of consolation to the lives of Obasanjo. They have been a source of consolation to the lives of Fulani, their Fulani masters and all the rest of them, because they keep sounding to them, that there's still hope, or people are not gonna, buy into the Biafran stuff, what have you and all this. But this is an investigation. For the past 3 years now, or let me use event for my dating. Since the coming out of Mazen Nnamdi Kanu from detention till now, these individuals, this is just real. These individuals, because they are rich and they extensively go for information, unlike those who don't have money for information. These individuals have surveyed the society. They have surveyed the indigenous society, their homeland. I'm talking about these wedding Biafrans who want to sound politically correct by trying to say, leave Nigeria, let's go. And they discover that extensive and a shocking majority of Biafran people are lining behind IPOB and talking about Biafra. So it's done on them that if they should continue on the path of being politically correct, that danger faces them. Danger faces them and their children. So they feel that the best thing to do, in fact, is a social way of thinking. If you study about class politics, you will discover one thing in class politics. When the commoners define a cause and they are ready to die for that cause, what the bourgeoisie, I'm talking about the extremely rich class, do is to see a way to align with the vision of the commoners. Why? Because they don't want themselves to be identified as the enemy of the people. And that's exactly what is playing out. There's a high class politics playing out now. It's obvious in the Biafran land that the common man is no longer interested with the one Nigeria trash. And the common people control the population, including the driver and the gateman of these bourgeoisies, these rich Biafrans who want to stand politically correct, including their driver, their security personnel, their gatemen. So they see themselves as standing in isolation, standing on a dangerous point. So what they are doing secretly is acknowledging that indisputable fact that they are just floating. So when these kind of people meet the likes of Obasanjo, who happens to be their boss, they might not meet them in Nigeria because they might schedule a meeting with them in Dubai, in UK, where nobody can swear. Their drivers will not know that they met one Tanjuma, they met one Musa. They always schedule meetings abroad. They will tell them, look, Oga, we can't keep on defending one Nigeria project in our land. They will express the reality. They will tell them the hard truth. And that's exactly what Obasanjo had. Because these guys keep on telling them in Europe, in US, Oga, it is so hard to talk about Nigeria in my community. In fact, things are becoming so scary. And it is all this coupled with international source of information. You understand me? Marrying the domestic information, or let me say domestic reality, with international reality, forced Obasanjo to put up this advice. You can now understand by telling the Nigerian government that Nnamdi Kanu has conceptualized or is working towards conceptualization of the freedom of self-determination. You know what? One thing Obasanjo see to be so dangerous in Nnamdi Kanu methodology is the function. We are making a social analysis, and you should forgive our, if we are going high much, you should forgive us. But it's a social science we are trying to, import here. Now, what Obasanjo is saying from the methodology of Nnamdi Kanu that he defines to be a conceptualization, and he said it's going to lead to point of no return is this. Let's make this analysis. He said Nnamdi Kanu is moving this, transforming the minds of the people to begin to see this whole stuff, as an issue of do or die. And you know what that means? When you move an idea from, if you move an idea from economic point of view to religion, if an idea moves from economic, as in you are telling people do this for better life, and all of a sudden you move it from that point to a point of, I don't want to really use the word religion, I want to use a better word or all-encompassing word. You move it to a point that people believe they could do this because that is the essence of their creation. That is why they are here. And that is what God expects from them. When you get to that point, it becomes what Obasanjo describes as a tipping point. And that is exactly the point the Biafran struggle is metamorphosing into. One thing Nigerian government don't understand is that the more you delay the exit of the Biafran people, the more devastating things become. And the more devastating things become, the more dangerous Nigeria becomes for human inhabitation. So what Obasanjo is telling them, that these guys have conceptualized this to be an issue of freedom and liberation. And these people can go extra mile to defend themselves. They can go extra mile to get this freedom. And he made them to understand. He said, any country can give a backup. Don't underrate. This is a man who has traveled wide. This is a man who have too many contacts with a lot of international players. Do you understand me? And this is what most guys don't understand. This is what most guys don't understand. So, if Obasanjo is warning Nigeria today, and somebody thinks he doesn't know what he's talking about, somebody thinks he is talking out of order, I think that person is doubting at his own peril. So what are we saying today? Hey, somebody said today, I think that their Nigeria cannot survive today. This is one of them, I think, Bode George, yes, said today that Nigeria cannot survive 2022. But what am I trying to say here? Or what are we trying to achieve by analyzing Obasanjo this moment? What we are trying to make you understand here is this. When you are consistent in what you're doing, when you are resolute in what you're doing, especially when it's a just cause, believe you me, the oppressor will give up so soon. That is just the way it is. Nobody believed that the lies of Obasanjo could mention self-determination, could mention freedom, could mention liberation. Such words. This is a man who fought for one Nigeria. Why is he making U-turn today? He's making this U-turn because reality have overtaken the illusion. And why is the reality stronger than the illusion? The reality is stronger than the illusion because we insisted as a people to seek what is naturally expected of us, and that is the quest for freedom. If we would have shaked, if we subpedared, if we gave up, if we were like some of our brethren who were of stomach infrastructure driven, or who think they are fighting for someone betterment, not realizing that the quest for freedom is for your own first, the lives of Obasanjo wouldn't have changed. You don't blame Obasanjo when he said earlier that we were miscreants, because he have analyzed those who came before us and understood their hunger for popularity, their hunger for money, their hunger for position, and he used that parameter to adjudge everyone to be a miscreant. But today, I think it's done on everyone that IPOB is the most disciplined group. It's done on everyone that Mazen Nnamdi Kanu is not ready to give up. And we never give up. It's done on everyone that why the bar for Biafran possibility is growing. The bar for Nigerian survivalhood is fastly depreciating. You can now understand. So, we must continue. I want to appreciate everyone that brought out his or her time to join us on this program. Thank you so much, and we must remain resolute. We must keep fighting. We must. We have no other option. Either we do this and survive as a people, or, believe you me, we do this and save the future of our children. And I think the latter is worth fighting. So from here, I want to say goodbye, and we'll be meeting hopefully next Sunday on another discussion. Bye, and may God bless IPOB, may God bless Mazen Nnamdi Kanu, and above all, may God bless the entire Biafran people. Bye from here.